In the age of social media, the camera often turns on before common sense. For some, it becomes a tool of self-expression, while for others, it is a way to keep the audience's attention at all costs. These people didn't plan to die on camera, but each of them made a choice for a shot that seemed more important than the risk. This video features 7 stories of influencers whose videos became not content, but the last testament to their decisions. June 2018, Detroit, Michigan. The city, which has been associated with the automotive industry for decades, has long been a magnet for urbanists, photographers, and bloggers. Abandoned factories, ruined warehouses, and entire neighborhoods without residents became the backdrop for content that promised authenticity and risk. It was here that 23-year-old Michael Reeves built his YouTube channel. Michael was not a well-known influencer. His audience numbered just over 8,000 subscribers. He worked part-time at an electronics store and made videos in his spare time. The channel was based on a series of videos featuring parkour jumps on abandoned buildings. He did not use safety ropes as a matter of principle, explaining it as the honesty of the shot. In the comments, viewers often warned of the danger, but these warnings were lost among the messages of support and donations. On the day of the tragedy, Michael planned to broadcast live from the roof of a former car factory on the eastern outskirts of the city. He had been to the location several times before, but had never attempted to jump between the two buildings. The distance between the roofs was about 4 meters, and the height was about 4 stories above the concrete courtyard. According to him, it was supposed to be a simple but spectacular ending to the stream. The broadcast began in the afternoon. A chest-mounted camera captured the cracked concrete, rusted metal structures, and the gradually growing number of viewers in the chat room. Michael spent several minutes explaining the plan, joking about his fear, and repeating that everything is under control. He did not check the roof surface, did not pay attention to the fine gravel and dust that had accumulated near the edge. While running, his right foot slipped. The camera tilted sharply, capturing a brief pause as he tried to regain his balance. This was enough to lose his momentum. Then the sky, the edge of the building, and the empty space between them appeared in the frame. The broadcast did not stop. The camera continued to work for several minutes, transmitting a still image from below. At first, viewers in the chat room wrote that it was part of the production. Only later did messages appear asking for help, but none of them knew the exact address. Police arrived at the scene after a call from a security guard at a neighboring facility. Michael Reeves was pronounced dead on the spot. The investigation revealed no foul play. The cause of death was injuries sustained as a result of a fall from a height. The channel was left without updates. The last stream circulated online for several days before being removed by the platform. August 2018, a suburb of San Jose, California. The region, known as the heart of tech startups, has long been home to not only innovation, but also a cult of experimentation. Here, the idea of DIY was often perceived as an alternative to professional safety standards. It was in this environment that 31-year-old Andrew Collins started his tech blog. Andrew worked as a system administrator for a small company and made videos about electronics in his spare time. His channel was dedicated to cheap solutions for home appliances, recycling old components, and homemade power supplies. The channel's audience gradually grew, especially after a series of videos in which he criticized battery manufacturers for over-insuring and overstating safety requirements. The idea for the new video came after an active discussion in the comments. Viewers asked to see if it was possible to assemble a high-capacity lithium battery from cheap cells without factory protection. Andrew decided to do this in a live broadcast format to demonstrate the honesty of the process and answer questions in real time. The filming took place in his home workshop, a small garage without a ventilation system. At the beginning of the broadcast, he explained the scheme in detail, laying out the parts on the table. He did not use goggles or gloves, considering it unnecessary. There were comments in the chat about temperature control, but Andrew brushed them off, saying that overheating is a myth for beginners. Gradually, the voltage in the system began to rise faster than he expected. The camera recorded how the battery case changed color and the air in the room became noticeably cloudier. Andrew noticed an odor, but instead of stopping the broadcast, he leaned closer to the table, trying to show the assembly details in close-up. At this point, the temperature of the elements exceeded the critical level. The reaction occurred abruptly and without warning. The recording stopped a few seconds after he moved away from the table. The viewers still managed to hear intermittent breathing and the sound of falling instruments. The emergency services were called by a neighbor who smelled a pungent chemical odor. Doctors pronounced the man dead on the spot. The investigation showed that the cause of death was acute poisoning from toxic fumes formed during the destruction of lithium cells. The equipment did not have any protection systems. The video was removed by the platform in a few hours, but fragments were circulated among technical communities for a long time as a warning that came too late. November 2017, Dolomites, northern Italy. The tourist season has already ended, most of the routes are empty, and the weather is becoming increasingly unstable. For experienced travelers, it was a high-risk period, but for bloggers, it was an opportunity to get unique shots without crowds. It was with this goal in mind that 28-year-old Luca Ferretti set off alone to the mountains. Luca ran a travel channel focused on real places without filters. He avoided tourist routes on principle and often emphasized that he did not use safety equipment. In his videos, he said that unnecessary elements spoil the feeling of freedom and create a false idea of travel. His audience consisted mainly of young viewers who perceived this approach as proof of authenticity. On the day of the tragedy, Luca stopped on a narrow mountain ridge overlooking the valley below. He mounted a camera on a selfie stick and began recording a short video for social media. In the recording, he can be heard talking about perfect timing and explaining that he would take a few steps closer to the edge for a better angle. Underfoot was a wet, rocky surface covered with a thin layer of frost. When Luca stepped aside to level the shot, one of his feet slipped. The camera captured a sharp tilt of the horizon and a short sliding sound. Then the sky and a fragment of a rock wall appeared in the frame. The recording didn't stop right away. The phone continued to shoot for a few more seconds while lying on the rock. The video was automatically saved and synchronized with the cloud storage. The body of Luca Ferretti was found by rescuers only a few hours after his relatives raised the alarm about his absence. He died from multiple injuries sustained during a fall from a great height. The investigation found no signs of technical failure or third-party interference. The only witness to the incident was a recording made by Luca himself. His last video quickly spread online before being removed by the platforms. For many, it became a clear example of how the pursuit of the perfect shot can override any experience and training. March 2020, New York City. The city was entering a period of uncertainty. The streets were empty at night, transportation was intermittent, and restricted areas were becoming less controlled. For some streamers, this meant new opportunities for content. One of them was 29-year-old Jeremy Brown, known for his nightly broadcasts from abandoned and technical urban infrastructure. Jeremy positioned himself as an urban explorer. He did not pick locks on camera, but regularly entered restricted areas, explaining that he was documenting reality. His streams attracted viewers with a tense atmosphere and a sense of constant danger. The number of views increased every time he went underground. On the night of the tragedy, he started broadcasting at the technical entrance to an abandoned subway tunnel that had not been used for decades. The camera was mounted on his forehead, and a flashlight illuminated the narrow space ahead. He repeated several times that the route was safe and that he had been through it before. However, this time the humidity level was much higher and the floor was slippery. The tunnel gradually narrowed. Rusty handrails, cables, and a deep, dark cavity at the bottom were visible. Jeremy stopped to answer a chat message and took a step to the side without looking at his feet. At that moment, he stumbled and fell off the narrow platform. The camera shifted sharply, and then the image disappeared from view. The broadcast did not stop immediately. Viewers heard a dull thud, an echo in the tunnel, and several seconds of heavy breathing. Some took it as an element of the performance. Only after the sound disappeared completely did messages begin to appear in the chat room asking for help. The body of Jeremy Brown was found by rescuers a few hours after a signal from the transportation service, which detected unauthorized access. He died as a result of severe injuries sustained during the fall. The recording of the broadcast was seized as evidence and later deleted. The only fact left for the viewers was that the camera had been working longer than its owner could have survived. May 2016, Los Angeles, California. A city where competition for attention on the internet was particularly fierce, food challenges have long been a separate genre of content. Large portions, limited time, and the physical limits of the human body have become tools for gaining views. It was in this niche that 34-year-old Kevin Joe worked. Kevin started out as a regular food blogger reviewing restaurants and street food. His early videos were moderately successful, but over time, the audience's interest began to wane. To retain viewers, he gradually moved to more and more challenging formats, such as speed eating and endurance challenges. Each new video had to outperform the previous one. The idea for a live stream came after a series of comments asking him to do something really extreme. Kevin announced a stream during which he planned to eat an excessive amount of high-calorie food in a limited time. He did not undergo medical examinations, considering himself healthy. The broadcast took place in a small rented studio without the presence of other people. At the beginning of the stream, he looked calm and collected. The camera captured a table filled with food containers and a chat room that was quickly filling up with messages. After a few minutes, the pace slowed down. Breathing became heavier, movements less coordinated. There were comments in the chat asking for a pause, but Kevin continued, explaining that it was part of the challenge. About halfway through the broadcast, he stopped, holding his chest. The camera recorded him trying to catch his breath without getting up from his chair. For several minutes, he hardly moved. Some viewers thought it was a theatrical pause. Only after he lost consciousness did it become clear that the situation was out of control. Emergency services were called after the platform automatically detected suspicious inactivity in the stream. Doctors pronounced him dead on the spot. According to experts, the cause was an acute physiological failure caused by extreme overload of the body. The recording of the broadcast was deleted, and the channel was no longer updated. For the audience, this broadcast became the line between entertainment and consequences that cannot be edited or cut. July 2021, North Texas. Long, straight highways outside of cities have long been a favorite location for car bloggers. The lack of traffic lights and minimal traffic created an illusion of control that was easy to pass off as safety. It was here that 27-year-old Ryan Mitchell shot content for his channel. Ryan positioned himself as a car enthusiast who tests the limits of standard cars. He had no professional racing training, but regularly posted videos of speeding on public roads. He ignored comments with risk warnings, believing that his experience behind the wheel would compensate for the lack of track conditions. His audience grew with each new record. On the day of the tragedy, he announced a video about the maximum speed on a regular sedan without major modifications. The camera was mounted on the windshield, and a microphone recorded the sound of the engine and his comments. He did not use a seatbelt, explaining that he wanted to move freely in the frame. The recording began on a stretch of highway where traffic was minimal. The first minutes passed without incident. The speed gradually increased, and the indicators on the dashboard changed faster and faster. The video showed the car starting to react more sharply to road irregularities. Ryan continued to comment without slowing down. At the next bend, which seemed to be a minor one, the car lost traction. The camera captured a sharp sideways movement and the sound of an impact. The image was blurred for a moment, and then the recording stopped. Witnesses of the accident called emergency services, but help arrived too late. Ryan Mitchell died on the spot from injuries sustained in a high-speed collision. The investigation confirmed that the car had no technical malfunctions. The cause of the accident was a loss of control at a speed unsuitable for a public road. The video was seized as evidence and was never published again. For many viewers, this recording was a clear confirmation that the limits of physics do not change even when the camera is on. October 2015, British Columbia, Canada. Fall in the mountains means rapid weather changes, unstable winds, and lower temperatures. For most tourists, it was a signal to end the season, but for extreme bloggers, it was an opportunity to capture rare footage. It was with this goal in mind that 21-year-old Noah McKinnon set out for the mountains alone. Noah ran a small but active channel dedicated to traveling dangerous routes unaccompanied. He called it a pure experience and emphasized that he did not use insurance to avoid distorting reality. His videos did not have a large number of views, but the audience consisted of people who were looking for intense, almost documentary-like content. For them, risk was part of the appeal. On the day of the tragedy, Noah climbed a narrow mountain ridge that dropped off into deep gorges on both sides. He held his camera in his hands, periodically commenting on the route and weather conditions. The wind was getting stronger, and the surface of the rocks was wet after the night's rain. On the recording, he can be heard saying that there were just a few more meters to go for the perfect shot. As he moved along the ridge, Noah stopped several times to stabilize the image. He didn't look down at his feet all the time, concentrating on the camera and the horizon. At one point, his step shifted slightly to the side, and his foot lost its support. The camera recorded a sudden movement and a short sound of sliding on the stone. The recording did not end immediately. The phone fell to the edge of the rock, capturing the empty space and distant sounds of the wind. A few seconds later, the image became still. The connection disappeared only after the battery ran out. Noah did not return to the base camp, and the search operation began the next morning. The body was found in a gorge at a considerable depth. Rescuers concluded that there was no chance of survival after the fall. The investigation found no technical malfunctions or external factors other than weather conditions and lack of insurance. The last recording from the camera was used to restore the chronology of events. Noah McKinnon's channel remained online without updates. His final video had no splash screen, editing, or explanation. It only captured the moment when the desire to go a little further for the shot turned out to be the final decision. All of these stories are different in terms of place, circumstances, and motivation, but they have one thing in common. The camera was on when it should have been off. None of the characters planned their own deaths and did not perceive the risk as something final. For each of them, it was just one more step, one more shot, one more attempt to keep their attention. These recordings were not created as warnings, but that is exactly what they became. They remained not as content, but as a dry record of the moment when the line between control and chance disappeared. In a world where any mistake can be cut out in the editing room, these videos remind us that there are things that cannot be re-recorded.